Questions?
Mr. Speaker, I've given notice of the following private notice question to ask the Honourable Minister of Environment, Solid Waste Management and Climate Change whether in regard to the protection of the environment, he will state the measures he proposes to take following the judgment delivered by the Privy Council in the matter of EcoSud and two other respondents versus the Minister of Environment, Solid Waste and Climate Change and another appellants, Mauritius, on the 4th July 2024.
Mr. Speaker, sir, members will recall that during the summing up of the debate on the Environment Act 2024 at Parliament session of the 14th of May 2024, I informed the House that a judgment from the board of the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council was being awaited on this particular case with a view to provide clarification on interpretation of the law regarding the right of appeal by a person to challenge decisions on issuance of an EIA license. The Ministry has never objected to any NGO or aggrieved party to appeal against the decision of the Ministry before the Environment and Land Use Appeal Tribunal. For the benefit of the House, allow me to recall the chronology of events around this issue. On the 23rd of November 2017, my ministry received an application for an environment impact assessment license from Point Destiny Landslide Company Limited for an integrated residential development under the Property Development Scheme on a freehold land of an extent of 709,648.26 meters square at Point Destiny, Beauvallon. The proposed development comprises the construction of the following principal components: 172 villas, 278 apartments and penthouses, 100 duplexes, and 105 service lots with educational, sport, leisure, and commercial facilities. On the 31st of January 2019, an EIA license was issued to the proponent, which was subject to a set of 48 conditions. Allow me here to emphasize that Section 24(3) of the EPA of 2002 provides, I quote, "Notwithstanding the approval of an EIA, the Minister may at any time revoke an EIA license or amend the conditions of an EIA license where he has reason to believe that circumstances reasonably justifying such revocation or amendment of the condition have arisen since the granting of the EIA. The proponent is contravening the conditions attached to his license. Proponent had failed to disclose any material information or had provided false or misleading information in the EIA report." On the 28th of February 2019, EcoSud appealed at the Environment and Land Use Appeal Tribunal against the decision to grant the EIA license to the proponent. The main ground of appeal was that, according to an expert's report issued by the Center for Wetland Research and Training, there were peatlands, that is, terrestrial wetlands, in the proximity of the development site, which have not been identified in the EIA report. Accordingly, the appellant moved that the EIA license be revoked. In August 2021, a preliminary objection was raised by the State Council representing the Minister of Environment, Solid Waste Management and Climate Change, and the same ministry that EcoSud lacked standing under Section 54(2) of the EPA 2002 to lodge the appeal. On the 6th of October 2021, the Environment and Land Use Appeal Tribunal upheld the preliminary objection raised and set aside the appeal by EcoSud on the grounds that the appellant failed to show that it was an aggrieved party and how it suffered undue prejudice from the proposed development. On the 26th of October 2021, EcoSud appealed against the ruling of the ELWAT at the Supreme Court. On the 18th of July 2023, The Supreme Court quashed the ruling of the ILWAT on the basis that the latter had given an unduly interpretation of Section 54.2 of the EPA of 2002 as to who can appeal against the decision of the minister to grant an EIA license before the ILWAT. In fact, the Supreme Court adopted a more liberal interpretation based on jurisprudence of the British Supreme Court. Consequently, organizations such as NGOs, which allegedly had expertise and sufficient knowledge of the subject matter in which it seeks to protect, may appeal against the decision of the minister to issue an EIA license. The case has been remitted back to the tribunal for it to decide whether ECOSUD had sufficient standing under the Act in the light of the principles laid down in its judgment. On the 3rd of August 2023, further to advice of the Attorney General's Office, the Minister and the Ministry of Environment, Solid Waste Management and Climate Change appealed to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council pursuant to Section 81 of the Constitution of the Republic of Mauritius, and a special leave was granted by the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council. Mr. Speaker, sir, after hearing the case on the 5th of May 2024, the Board of the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council delivered its judgment on the 4th of July 2024. In essence, the Board dismissed the appeal of the Minister and the Ministry of Environment, Solid Waste Management on inter alia a number of grounds. First, the Environment and Land Use Appeal Tribunal incorrectly required ECOSUD to prove prejudice to its private interests in order to establish standing under Section 54.2b of the Environment Protection Act of 2002. Second, a test of property rights or of economic interest is not appropriate in an environmental context when considering standing under Section 54.2b of the EPA of 2002. The Board held that in the environmental context, prejudice in the sense of harm can be applied to an interest in the environment, as well as prejudice to either an economic interest or to a private interest. Third, for that case in hand, the Board recognized ECOSUD as an aggrieved party possessing sufficient standing given it has shown genuine concern and interest in the environmental aspects that it seeks to protect, and ECOSUD has showed it possessed sufficient knowledge of the subject matter at hand, albeit no individual property right or interest has been affected. The Board observes that ECOSUD has expertise and experience with regard to matters pertaining to wetlands and the region of Point Destiny, and this is backed by an expert's report. Fourth, if prejudice is confined to economic prejudice and prejudice to a private interest, such a narrow interpretation would defeat the larger purpose of the Environment Protection Act of 2002 of protecting the environment, particularly in situations where a proposed development would take place in a private, remote area, which is less likely to impact on an individual's personal interests. Fifth, in relation to the merits of the appeal, the substantive objections raised by ECOSUD are not trivial, frivolous, or vexatious. Rather, the merits are backed by ECOSUD's own considerable expertise and the expert's report. More so, ILWAT did not consider the merits of the claim, including the importance of the issue raised or its consequences. The standing requirement in Section 54.2a should not therefore be used to filter out arguable environmental issues. Furthermore, ordinarily, a hearing on the question of standing should not descend into a protracted preliminary hearing. Last, the National Ramsar Committee's clearance to the development was subject to a condition that the Environment and Sustainable Development Division of the Ministry be requested to undertake an environmental impact assessment on the project. Accordingly, the National Ramsar Committee considered that ECOSUD's objection had sufficient merit to require not only an EIA by the proponent, but also an EIA by the Ministry. I wish to point out that it is not for the Ministry to undertake an environment impact assessment of the project, but the proponent himself. This has been the position of the Ministry before the ILWAT. Moreover, given that the EIA assessment process is multidisciplinary by its nature, the different aspects relating to environment have been duly assessed during the EIA process by various concerned competent ministries. Mr. Speaker, sir, based on those arguments, the board of the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council held that the Supreme Court quash the ruling of the Environment and Land Use Appeal Tribunal and ordered that the matter be remitted back to the ELWAT for it to decide whether ECOSUD had sufficient standing in the light of the principles laid down in its judgment. Mr. Speaker, sir, further to the judgment delivered, I wish to highlight the following. First, this judgment has brought further clarity on what defines an aggrieved party under Section 54.2 of the EPA of 2002, to the effect that an NGO which is able to demonstrate sufficient undue prejudice may challenge the decision to grant an EIA license, although no private or economic interest has been affected. Second, it is important to recall that amendments were brought to Section 54.2 of the EPA Act of 2002 through the Environment and Land Use Appeal Tribunal Act of 2012 to introduce standing requirements to prevent arguably busybodies, that is, persons unduly interfering and unconnected with the project, from abusing the appeal process, thereby causing considerable delay in projects. The judgment relates to the interpretation to be given as to who is an aggrieved person under Section 54.2 of the EPA of 2002 in respect of a NGO and would not have any impact on this policy of preventing such busybodies to make frivolous appeals against EIA licenses granted to legitimate undertakings that have successfully gone through proper environmental impact assessments. What this verdict of the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council gives is clarity on how NGOs who have no private or economic interest which will be impacted by a project may be able to demonstrate sufficient prejudice to be able to challenge the project by proving that they have a genuine interest in aspects of the environment that they seek to protect, and sufficient knowledge of the subject will be able to show that a decision to approve the issue of an EIA license is likely to cause them undue prejudice in relation to their interests in that aspect of the environment. Third, the judgment highlighted environmental stewardship as one of the strengths of the EPA 2002, which urges every citizen to use his best endeavors to preserve and enhance the quality of life by caring responsibly for the natural environment of Mauritius. I wish to point out to members of the House that environmental stewardship has been maintained in the new Environment Act of 2024 and is a vibrant proof of government's intent to pursue inclusive, good environmental governance. Fourth, as opposed to claims being relayed in the press, the judgment of the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council is in relation to the EPA of 2002, as amended. The Environment Act of 2024 is new, and its provisions have not yet been tested before a court of law. Accordingly, it would be presumptuous to state that the Environment Act of 2024 is undermined in any way. Rather, as previously mentioned, this judgment has brought clarity on interpretation of specific terms in a provision of the EPA 2002 as amended. Fifth, I wish to highlight that the Environment Act of 2024 has already provided for a host of other measures to even further improve environmental governance in the Republic of Mauritius, and which will come into force as from the 1st of August 2024. First, we have the reintroduction of a strategic environmental assessment, whereby government will lead by example by exposing several of its own key sectoral public policies and programs to evaluation of the environmental impacts is an illustration of this. A strategic environmental assessment aims at supporting proactive consideration of environmental and sustainable development objectives at the outset of plans and programs in various sectors such as agriculture, ESAs, fisheries, energy, industry, transport, waste management, town and country planning, developments above 20 hectares, port development, as well as multiple undertakings. A strategic environmental assessment will ensure that environmental considerations are integrated into plans and programs right from the planning stage and will provide a wider perspective by ensuring that socio-economic issues are treated at par with environmental protection and sustainability. Furthermore, we are also expecting that SEA will be instrumental in the early consideration of potential impacts, precautionary and preventive action principles, including cumulative and synergistic impacts that are often difficult to identify at low tiers and project level. We have also the EIA and PER, Preliminary Environment Report, processing mechanisms, which have been reviewed in depth within the Environment Act of 2024 to ensure and enhance transparency. As from the 1st of August 2024, whereby the Environment Act 2024 will be proclaimed, the public will also be able to submit views and comments on PER applications, as described at Section 34 of the Act. This contrasts with the EPA of 2002, whereby PERs were not subject to public inspection. In order to further enhance transparency, additional information or studies undertaken during processing of EIA and PER applications will be made accessible to the public on the National Electronic Licensing System for consultation. Furthermore, the Environment Act of 2024 provides for improvements in the assessment of environmental integrity of environmental assessments. To that end, and with a view to complete the cycle of environmental assessment, proponents would now be required to apply for a completion certificate prior to operating any undertaking in line with Section 52 of the Environment Act 2024. Moreover, the new Act also provides for enforcing agencies to submit monitoring reports on a quarterly basis. This aims to ensure close monitoring by authorities and regular monitoring thereof. It is to be stressed that, as was the case in the EPA of 2002, the Environment Act of 2024 also provides for the Director of Environment to be able to extend the time limit to submit public comments to afford reasonable opportunity for any person to submit comments on a preliminary environment report, environment impact assessment, strategic environmental assessment as and when required. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to point out that funding has been appropriated in the last budgetary exercise for the ground truthing and finalization of the environmentally sensitive areas, mapping of the following ESAs: coastal marshlands, upland marshlands, mangroves, as well as formulation of policy recommendations with regard to St. John's. Moreover, under the UNDP Global Environment Facility and Government Project on Sustainable Land Management, the draft Environmentally Sensitive Areas Bill of 2009 is being reviewed, and a legal expert has been hired to that end. A revised draft is expected to be formulated by December 2024. Last, it is to be also pointed out that the environment sector is one characterized by its dynamic nature. Hence, new issues or challenges may and will call for frequent reviews and possible legislative amendments. That approach will continue. Thank you.
Can I ask the Minister whether he'll inform us if the National Ramsar Committee is chaired by the Permanent Secretary of the Minister of Agro-Industry? Yes. Now, and he made the request for an EIA to be carried out, and that was set aside. Why is it then that the advice was not, that advice was not sought from the Ramsar Advisory Commission? Knowing perfectly well that there's encroachment upon the wetlands.
Mr. Speaker, sir, as I mentioned in my main reply, I pointed out that it is not for the ministry to undertake an environment impact assessment of the project, but the proponent himself. This has been the position of the ministry before the ELOAT. Moreover, given that the EIA assessment process is multidisciplinary by its nature, the different aspects relating to environment have been duly assessed during the EIA process by various concerned competent authorities.
Does the minister realize that in taking the lead in the appeal proceedings, he's in a way substituted himself for the promoter whose direct interests were involved?
Mr. Speaker, sir, as I said earlier, we welcome the decision of the Privy Council, as the Privy Council has given a wider interpretation of locus standi in such matters. Had we not appealed on this matter, we would not have had the benefit of having such a broader interpretation of locus standi.
Broader interpretation doesn't mean that government has to side with the promoter. Does the minister realize that in siding with the promoter during the appellate proceedings, both before the Supreme Court and the Privy Council, he was opting for the destruction of pristine environment by the promoter rather than preservation by ECOSID?
Monsieur le Président, je pense que j'ai été très clair dans ma réponse. Hein? Donc, je ne vais surtout pas répéter la réponse que j'ai donnée. Le EI license a été... il y a eu l'application du EI license le 23 novembre 2017. Le 31 janvier 2019, le EI license was issued to the proponent. 31 janvier 2019 was issued to the proponent, which was subject to a set of 48 conditions. Et j'ai mentionné aussi que le 23 février 2019, l'ECOSUD a fait l'appel à the Environment and Land Use Appeal Tribunal. Ensuite, il y a eu le cas devant la Cour suprême, etc. Monsieur le Président, je pense que l'honorable leader de l'opposition doit quand même se rappeler. Il a été lui-même membre et aussi ministre dans le passé d'un gouvernement qui a tout... Et dans le gouvernement mauricien, dans le principe démocratique à Maurice, il a toujours existé le principe de la permanence de l'État, et ce, quel que soit le gouvernement ou le ministre qui se succède. Et là, je l'ai mentionné dans ma réponse, que toute la procédure a été suivie. Ce n'est pas une question qui a délivré le PMI, qui est le ministre qui a délivré le PMI, etc. En tant que ministre de l'Environnement, j'assume pleinement ma responsabilité. Bien, tout comme le ministère de l'Environnement fait partie du gouvernement, nous assumons pleinement notre responsabilité. Mais permettez-moi aussi de rappeler au leader de l'opposition, hein, je pense que le leader de l'opposition doit aussi se rappeler que... Laissez-moi terminer, Monsieur le Président. Laissez-moi rappeler au leader de l'opposition, c'était bien en 2012, lorsque lui-même faisait partie du gouvernement, il y a eu l'amendement de l'Environment and Land Use Appeal Tribunal, où, Monsieur le Président, dans le Environment Protection Act de 2002, où, à la section 54, c'est mentionné « Jurisdiction of the Tribunal. A tribunal shall hear and determine appeals against a decision of the minister », où c'est dit que, à la section 2, any person, je dis bien, any person may appeal within 30 days of the decision, etc., etc. Ensuite, il y a eu l'amendement de 2012. L'amendement de 2012, précisément, où c'est mentionné, noir sur blanc, that the minister had decided to issue an EI license, any person who is aggrieved by the decision. Aggrieved by the decision and is able to show that the decision is likely to cause him undue prejudice may appeal against the decision of the tribunal. Donc, Monsieur le Président, ce n'est pas une question de venir dire que la faute impute à tel ou tel gouvernement, etc. Il y a eu des décisions successives qui ont été prises par le Parlement successivement, par plusieurs gouvernements. Nous nous retrouvons dans un cas de figure d'interprétation de la loi. Et moi, personnellement, en tant que ministre de l'Environnement, je suis très heureux que le Privy Council a pu se prononcer sur cette question de locus standi. Et moi, je suis très content que nous avons eu cet avis du Privy Council, Monsieur le Président.
Yeah, but I can't understand why is that the minister has not allowed the promoter to fight its own case before the Privy Council. Why is it that the minister had to side with the promoter, and in doing so, his minister has been complicit in undermining the procedural safeguard of an appeal to the tribunal by allowing the promoter to proceed with the development as this amounts to a failure to care responsibly for the environment?
Monsieur le Président, il n'est pas normal de dire qu'on est en train de permettre à tel ou tel développement, etc. Mais je dois quand même dire que c'est vrai que le judgment Judicial Committee of the Private Council mentioned on works ongoing on the site, mais we take note of remarks need consideration. As far as we are aware, there has not been any formal request of a stay order by EcoSud before the Supreme Court or before ELWAT. Et je dois dire aussi que le ministère de l'Environnement, the proponent submitted an EMP for approval on the 14th of December 2021. In view of the ongoing court case, the advice of the Attorney General's Office was sought on the 7th of July 2021, whether the EMP can be processed, and the Attorney General's Office informed the 27th of July 2021, provided that there has been no application for a stay of the implementation of the project made by an interested party before either the Environment Land Use Tribunal or the Supreme Court, there would not be no legal impediment to proceed with the implementation of the proposed development. Donc, Monsieur le Président, nous ne sommes pas en train de travailler en isolation, mais bien sûr en conformité et aussi en consultation avec toutes les autorités concernées.
Speaker, this is shocking like what the minister has said. The case has been heard before the Supreme Court, was pending before the Privy Council, and would eventually be sent back, as he said, to the Environment and Land Use Appeal Tribunal. How could the minister still allow the promoter to proceed with the development? Don't you have some respect, at least for the Supreme Court and the Privy Council, in the light of the judgment pronounced?
Monsieur le Président, je ne vais surtout pas répéter la même réponse que je viens de donner. Je pense que j'ai été très clair dans ma réponse, Monsieur le Président.
I've stated very clearly that action has to be taken, call it stay order. In the meantime, the promoter is carrying on with its work. Why is it that the promoter is allowed to carry on with the work? This goes against what the Privy Council and the Supreme Court has stated. There should be stay of action till the case is referred to the Environment Land Use Appeal Tribunal.
Monsieur le Président, je pense que dans le jugement du Judicial Committee of the Privy Council, cela est clair, que le Judicial Committee of the Privy Council a pris note du fait que le promoteur est en train de continuer son projet. Monsieur le Président, c'est clair dans le jugement que l'affaire sera référée au Environment and Land Use Appeal Tribunal, où l'ONG EcoSud aura l'occasion de venir prouver ses points, défendre ses points, etc. Ce n'est pas à mon niveau de venir préempter, de venir prédire quelle sera la décision du Environment and Land Use Appeal Tribunal. Je pense qu'il faut laisser les différentes instances du pays fonctionner et à la lumière de la décision de l'Environment and Land Use Appeal Tribunal, le ministère sera appelé à prendre toute décision qui s'impose.
Do you have a Minister of Environment, or the Ministry and the government pro the promoter? You have wasted more than 5 million rupees of taxpayers' money in an appeal, which had you won, would have restricted the citizens' right to protect the environment. Can you inform the House who advised you to appeal against the decision of the Supreme Court, and what was the reasoning which convinced you to do so?
Monsieur le Président, je pense que je ne vais surtout pas répéter la question qui a été dite. Pour nous, c'était important pour nous d'avoir une bonne définition en ce qui concerne cette question de locus standi. On a eu la décision du Privy Council, bien sûr, nous serons toujours guided par la décision du Judicial Committee of the Privy Council. Et bien sûr, l'affaire sera référée au Environment and Land Use Appeal Tribunal. Moi, je pense qu'il va falloir qu'on puisse respecter toute décision qui va être prise par le Environment and Land Use Appeal Tribunal.
Minister, has the Minister made an assessment of the total costs implied?
Total cost par...
Total costs that have to be paid to all parties since government has lost the case.
Non. Monsieur le Président, la question de cost n'a pas été soulevée jusqu'à présent. Donc, non, nous ne sommes pas en présence d'aucune indication de ce cas précis, Monsieur le Président.
stands to reason that facts are damning, and the ministry has favored the promoter and has not respected the decision.
Honorable Boulel, put your questions directly without any observation, any remarks. Question.
Is the minister aware that in doing so, and by not implementing what the Privy Council has stated, that Mauritius may be considered as a rogue state by allowing those who have flouted the law to get away with murder?
Monsieur le Président, cette question de faire appel au Privy Council, c'est une pratique courante dans le pays, Monsieur le Président. As I said earlier, we welcome the decision of the Privy Council, as the Privy Council has given a wider interpretation of local standard. In such matters, had we not appealed on this matter, we would not have had the benefit of having a such broader interpretation. Monsieur le Président, ce n'est pas la première fois que l'État fait appel au Privy Council. Il s'agit d'une pratique courante qui nous permet de faire appel à la plus haute instance juridique du pays, qui est le Privy Council. Dans ce cas précis, cela nous a permis d'avoir une conclusion constructive. Toutefois, il est bon de rafraîchir la mémoire du leader de l'opposition. Dans le passé, dans le cas Med Point, la Cour suprême avait donné gain de cause à Pravin Kumar Jagnat, l'honorable Pravin Kumar Jagnat, mais le DPP d'alors avait néanmoins fait appel contre le jugement de la Cour suprême aux frais de l'État, aux frais des contribuables, Monsieur le Président. Le Privy Council faut bien le rappeler, a confirmé le jugement de la Cour suprême et donné gain de cause à l'honorable Pravin Kumar Jagnat. Il faut aussi ne pas oublier que la pétition électorale de Suren Dayal, contestant les résultats des élections de la circonscription numéro 8, la Cour suprême avait confirmé qu'il n'y avait aucune maldonne dans le processus électoral. Mais M. Dayal a fait appel au Privy Council avec la bénédiction de son leader, mais nous savons tous que le Privy Council avait confirmé que ces élections se sont déroulées d'une façon free and fair. Ce que je veux souligner, Monsieur le Président, c'est que dans ce cas également, plusieurs instances gouvernementales, notamment l'Electoral Supervisory Commission, l'Electoral Commissioner, ont dû débourser des frais pour restaurer leur image que certains ont voulu tenir. Monsieur le Président, mais il faut bien que l'honorable puisse savoir cela, Monsieur le Président.
Order. Time over.